Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Nurse Juan de la Cruz. I'm one of the admins of Lefora for nurses coming to the United States. So today I'm doing something new. I'm trying to do things faster by giving information. So I'm thinking doing it live would be better. So for today's topic, we'll be discussing about the nurse-patient ratio coming here to the US. Um, I know I'm streaming super late, so I don't mind. For me, it's almost midnight here in because I'm a night shift, so it's kind of lunchtime, but it's midnight. Um, for those who are not able to watch this on live, I'm sure it's gonna be recorded on my YouTube page. So please watch those if you want to learn something about this topic. Okay. So wanted to do this topic because Sir Marvin, one of the admins of Lefora, he posted a video about his nurse-patient ratio in California. And after posting that, a lot of people like message me on Facebook Messenger asking what's the ratio like? Is it like the same thing in Kentucky or other places, and all those kind of things. So, in order for me to answer better, I'm just gonna create this video and give you answers directly through this live streaming. Okay. All right. One thing Sir Marvin discussed is there's like a safety law in California that says like a safe ratio rule in California. Unfortunately, most of the places in the US or most of the states in the US doesn't have that kind of law. That's why they're trying to implement this law behind in the background. If you see this, they're trying to implement this as soon as they can. They're trying to submit this to legislation or something like to Senate, but it's not being approved yet. So, and I don't really think it will be approved soon. So today I'll just be discussing based on my personal experience about the ratios and all those things, and maybe you guys will learn some inputs about this. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So in my first hospital, I arrived here in 2019. I arrived under a staffing agency, and I was brought in Eastern Kentucky. It's kind of like a rural place. There we started with a ratio of 1:10. Yes, that is the ratio I arrive in that particular hospital. But that ratio is kind of different from other hospitals because for that 1:10, it's a regular hospital. Okay, it's a medical surgical floor, regular hospital. It's small, but it's still a regular one. The difference between them is they have a charge nurse, and the charge nurse is in charge of every patient in the entire floor. So it's 10 because whenever we have any problems with our patients, we have to just talk to the charge nurse and tell her that there's something wrong for our patients or we need something for our patient. And she'll be the one to talk to the doctors. So there's like a third person like acting in between from us and the doctors, which is very nice because one thing for me being a foreign nurse, I wasn't that versed in speaking in English. So I would rather not speak to a doctor. So was really thankful that there was someone in between us. Okay. But most hospitals do not have this kind of luxury. Okay. Um, so that's the ratio for the nurse then. So it was kind of okay. But it's still hard because it was like a 10, 1:10. So average was around 8 to 9. And for the nursing aid, we had a nursing aid, but the nursing aids ratio was like a 1:15 to 20. So that was their average. So in a way, I still have some help with the nursing aid, but it's not that complete help because they're really overworked with that number. Um, Thankfully, after a few months working there, my hospital was bought by a different firm, so they changed the name. So because of that, my ratio went down from 1:10 to 1:to like 7, 7, 8. So that was the like a regular ratio for me. So it was kind of easy for me because I was used to that kind of number working in Singapore. It's like 7 patients, but in Singapore I had like a lot of patients with trachs out of the 7. So like 3 or 4 patients with trach, and it's like you have to constantly suction them. So here I had like 7 patients, but most of them are not as heavy. They don't allow like these kind of heavy cases to be in the floor like a newly placed trach. They won't place them on a medical surgical floor or a regular medical surgical floor. So you only have like a basic patients like are bedbound. Sometimes they're walkie-talkie. Walkie-talkie means they can walk and they can talk properly. So just a mixture of that. Okay. So next will be, so the aids, even the when the hospital was like changed to a different brand or different name, the aids still had the same ratio. So it was still not significant for the nursing aid because the typical ratio for other hospitals for nursing aid is like 10 to 30. Sorry, 10 to 13. So it was okay, but not as hard as this the first hospital that I had. Excuse me. Okay. All right. So after with that hospital, after I finished my contract, I moved to a travel nursing job. So I tried to find a different hospital. In my second hospital, the ratio there was 1:7. So that's the thing that I signed on the contract, 1:7. But the average is like 4:5. That's the typical average for that particular hospital, which is really nice. And the cases are quite similar to the first hospital I had. So it wasn't that hard. It was definitely easier. And the hospital was more advanced, or there's more things available versus the first hospital that I came here. And the nursing aid, like I said, the ratio was like 1:13, but the average was around 10. So it was easier with the less patient that I have and had more help with the nursing aid. And plus the hospital was a better one. So there was a better processing for all those kind of things. So it made things easier for me. Okay. So what else? Hi to those watching, and please comment down below if I'm not being clear or there's some lag or something like that. Okay. Oh, where are we? All right. So anyway, so after working in the particular hospital, on my third assignment right now, where I'm working at, the ratio that I signed for the contract is 1:7 still, but our average is only like 4:5, which is much easier, and it's a better hospital again. And the nursing aid that we had also had a better ratio. It's like 1:10, so it really made things easier for me. So it was getting better from one hospital to the other. So that's a typical ratio that I'm had for the last 3 years working here in the United States, or I think 4 years now. Okay, so unfortunately for other hospitals, even though they have a lesser number of patients, it doesn't mean it's easier. Like heard some hospitals here in Louisville, they only have like 4 patients, but they do not have any nursing aides. Okay, it's like total care. So vital signs, bedside care, and everything. The primary nurse will be doing all those things. Okay, so it is kind of heavier, but it is doable. We did some kind of similar things whenever in our other hospitals. If we do not really have an aide, so we convert. So it's like from 7 patients, we just have to take care of 4 patients, but total care. So that's what we were doing those 3 hospitals. So they lessen the number of patients that you'll be handling since you'll be doing a primary care, which is supposed to be ideal, okay? But I think some hospitals don't do that. I heard some like horror stories wherein they supposed to get like 6 or 7 patients with the nursing aid, but since the nursing aid never came, they still had to take the 7 patients, which is really not good. And it's really hard to do those things, okay? And on and another thing, in one of the hospitals here, I think it's Norton's, they have like 4 patients, but you have to do including the primary care plus the phlebotomy work. So like if there's labs ordered for the patient, then you'll be the one extracting them from your patient. You'll be the one to like poke them. So if you're not used to doing it, I would suggest trying to volunteer or try things doing it while you still can. It's still a skill that you need to learn. So practice makes it perfect. Okay. So so that's the thing. It's really harder with that 4 patients in having phlebotomy. In my experience for the most hospitals I work, none of them asked us to take our own labs, except during for the COVID time, but it only lasted for like a month. So most of the time we have phlebotomists who comes and takes those blood in behalf of us. So which is really nice. The only time we have to take blood from a patient if they have a central line and it's working. So if that's the case, then we'll be the one to extract it and give it to the phlebotomist. So that's one thing. Okay. I think I asked some few questions from other my friends here in Louisville. In UFL, I think it's 1:6. That's a nurse to patient ratio there. And in Fraser Rehab is also like 1:6, and sometimes 1:8. So that's their typical ratio. And they don't have a nursing aide or certified nursing aide, but they have a patient care tech, something like that. So they don't do the vital signs and blood sugar. So they only like get whatever like basic needs for the patient. So I guess like cleaning up the patient, giving them food or feeding them. So they those can be a particular role for patient care techs. Then what else? Um, so five meeting nurses and other members. Hold on. Sorry, my bad. I'm not. Can you guys hear me? Okay, anywhere. All right. So for the next one, like Sir Marvin said about like safe staffing ratio rule. Like I said, we don't have that here in Kentucky or in most states. Unfortunately, we don't have. Um, California is viewed as the best state to work as a nurse because they have all these kind of rules and they pay bigger. We're trying to, I mean, the other states are trying to adapt what they're doing, but we're still in the process of doing that. So hopefully in the future, that will be the same scenario for us, especially for the safe ratio, because there's always a lot of like videos popping up right now for unsafe practice and like medical errors due to the number of patients being given versus the number of staff. So I hope this can be enacted in the near future. Okay. Also, Sir Marv talks about the acuity of patients or the set of patients. So sorry, let me go back. Like I said, I'm gonna make mistakes, or this is one of it. So Sir Marvin said it's like it's based on the acuity of the patient. So he said it's like four patients, and if there's like a really heavy set of patients, then some of those patients will be like considered as counted as two. Okay, so it's like maybe it's taking as a two or three patients, but it's equivalent to like a four patients based on their workload. So that is definitely ideal. Unfortunately, in most states, that's not really how it is. Yes. And I've been fighting for that in most of my hospitals, particularly in the second hospital I work, because they wanted to do like a blocking section. So blocking means like it's like 1 to 5. So that's the room that a patient is assigned to, or the nurse is assigned to. So and then it's another room, another blocking like 6 to 10, and that's where the second nurse will be assigned to. So if you're super unlucky, where in the first 1 to 5 is all bedridden, and the second set is like 6 to 10 is our walkie-talkies. So it's really not a balanced division, right? So walkie-talkie versus a bedbound. So one nurse will be taking all the bedbound patients, and the other will be taking care of the walkie-talkie ones. So it is definitely not fair, right? So that's how typically some places are being divided for patients, and usually it's done for the doctor's comfort. So I really hate that idea. Sometimes we do divide based on the number of patients, especially if they're like um, super heavy and you know that they're heavy. Sometimes I do speak my mind and tell the nursing manager, not like, or the charge nurse, that this is not right. It's I can't take care of these five patients who are like who have really like a demented patients and all bedbound, and I'll be the one alone taking care of this patient. So that's not really possible. So that's one thing for me. Okay, so next one. So you really have to talk about this kind of things when you arrive here in the US, because sometimes some of the charge nurses are not aware, like really aware of how things are being divided. So it's best to talk to them and just coordinate them or talk to them professionally. Okay. All right. So if you guys are watching, please comment down below for your particular state or the hospital, and tell me how many patients you are normally taking care of, like per shift. And tell me if you have a similar scenario for like Sir Marv's, or just a similar scenario with my case here in Kentucky. And if I may, if other places in the US, the ratio is almost like similar. It's like 1:7 or 6. That's like a typical ratio here in the US, except in California. Okay, so that's how it is. So another thing why I wanted to discuss this is because if you're gonna sign a contract, you have to check these things. You have to make sure that this is like stipulated or is being written, so you know your boundaries when you arrive here in the US. And aside from this specific number, you have to ask what type of nursing care are you going to provide to the patient. If there is a nursing aid, or if there's no nursing aid for the particular ratio that they given you or they written on the contract for you. So it's like 1:6. But is there a nursing aid or is there not a nursing aid? So you should ask those employers, especially during interview, so you'll know what you'll be going into. Okay, so that's one way for clarifying things, and if you can have those things stipulated on your contract, so it will be easier for you to stand your ground whenever like they're trying to abuse you for giving you more patients than you have to. Okay, all right. um One thing to note here for medical surgical, there are a lot of things that we they don't do versus like Asian hospitals. So in medical surgical floor, they don't place new patients who are like newly placed with a trach that requires a lot of suctioning. Patients who needed what do you call these things, like cardiac drips. They don't normally put patients in a regular medical surgical floor. So I think back home in the Philippines, we're doing like dopamine, we're doing like levofed, and sometimes they're being transferred to a regular floor. I really remember that back then. So I'm super thankful here in the US that we're not doing that. I almost tried to start this, but good thing my mentor was there with me, and she told me the only time we can start those drip in this floor if the patient's crashing. So that's what she told me. So because of that, I have to call the doctor again and told him about it, and we transferred the patient to ICU. If not ICU, maybe there's like a step down unit where they can place these patients with those particular cardiac trips. Okay, so take note. There's a big difference versus Philippines and US setting. And another thing like pediatrics or pedia patients. Normally, they don't give this to travel nurses. Okay, most for these three hospitals, they never gave to travel nurses. So whenever there's a pediatric patient on the floor, it will be given to a regular staff nurse, and the travel nurse will get someone equivalent to that particular patient. So it's like a trade-off. It's kind of like a rule here in the US. It's like you have to be certified and you have to have like what do you call this, like an ACLS or NAPALS, pediatric advanced cardiac life support, something like that. So I'm sorry, I'm stuttering. All right. So then then here, so ratio does not mean is equal to the like regular work. Yeah, I mean, like if there's like four patients in this hospital versus a four patients on the next hospital on the same city, it doesn't mean it will be the same setting. Sometimes super hard on that one hospital because of how things are being managed. Like my first hospital, it was kind of hard because there's a lot of things not available, a lot of way of communication not comfortable versus the second one. Like in the first one, I have to call the doctors primarily, ask them for a particular thing, call them, call them again if I need some clarifications, call pharmacy, and all those kind of things. But in my like third hospital, I don't have to call them. I just have to use my phone, and we have an app wherein we use like it's kind of like a way to contact or communicate with the doctors. So I have to just to message them and contact them through it, and give them details through a text, and they can give the orders via the text as well. And most of the time, they'll put the orders on the system. So it was super easier. It makes things less complicated, less problematic. So that's one thing I really love with this particular hospital I'm working. So I think we call this like a halo, Dr. Halo. So it's super nice. And I think other hospitals in their Epic system, they have that in their system built in. So if they wanted to ask something about a patient or refer things to the doctor, they can just type in on the system and it will go directly to the doctor's cell phone or account. Then they can like order them. So it's really easier. In my hospital, we're not using Epic, so we're just using Meditech Expand. So I don't think there's a built-in feature like that, like the one with the Epic. So, but using the Dr. Halo system is also nice. So, it's better than my previous one versus not like manually calling them. Okay. So, um, in conclusion, every hospital has have different rulings when it comes to staffings and ratios. Okay, you have to put it in mind. It's not the same. Okay, one hospital may be different from one state, from one city, or just from a different hospital on the next door. So it's a different setting. So it's hard to compare. And please, if you arrive here in the US, please do not like compare everything from what you're doing before from what you're doing here. It's like, oh, in the Philippines we're doing this. Oh, in the US, oh, in Singapore we're doing this. Oh, oh, in Dubai we're doing this. So please stop doing that. Just mentally talk to yourself. Okay, don't like blur it out. It does sound annoying for them, for the locals. So try to use that just or limit that. I mean, okay. All right. Give more info. I'm just gonna repeat over this. Like for me. Okay. So the best thing for you, in order for you to know what setting you'll be in when you arrive in that particular hospital, is try to connect to someone who's working in that particular hospital. Like for me, 2018-19, I was able to ask one of them left forum members about the particular hospital I'll be working in, and he connected me to someone directly working there. And that guy turned out to be my mentor when I arrived here in the US. So before I arrived, already got all the things I needed, like information. So I was able to prepare mentally. So just do more research, try to connect with people, and just learn some few more things or tricks, especially like using the EHR or the computerized electronic recording system. That will definitely give you a plus or boost. Like for me, I worked in Singapore. Partially there was like a computerized, partially not. But the forms that we were using were equivalent to the computerized that we're using here in the US. So it made things easier for me because I don't have to write or read through them because it's actually like super similar from the computerized version here in the US. So it made things easier for me. So my transition was super easy. So my training period was better versus my some of my other colleagues who weren't versed with the same documentations that we had in Singapore. So if you want me to discuss more my training periods or how things are being trained here in the US, please comment down below as well. Okay, maybe I'll try to do a video on that. So again, thank you for listening. So hopefully you did understand and hopefully you could hear me with this. I'm not really sure what's happening. So um, again, thank you. I'm Nurse Juan de la Cruz, your OFWers. Again, thank you. I'm Nurse Juan de la Cruz, your OFW nurse. Thank you for watching. God bless. Bye bye. See you soon. Bye. Paano to?